Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Standing Committee on Strategies and Public Policies on May the 19th. We're somewhat late, so we apologize sometimes to do things well. It takes time. Let's begin with item number one presentation on bicycle lanes concerning Lorette Street. And this presentation will be made by Jason Nadeau and Jacques Leblanc, one from the recreational department, the other one from engineering. I will ask you a question. Were the people from that sector invited to attend tonight? The people who live in that area, were they invited to attend tonight's meeting? I know they're waiting. I was called a few times already, and I know they're waiting for the results. So I know we like to have you make a presentation to the council. That's very nice. The citizens, yes, uh, your worship. No decision is being asked for tonight. No, I understand. We will decide what we do afterwards. As far as public presentation, thank you. Let's proceed. So I'm here tonight with Jason Nadeau from the cultural department. Will share the presentation. This is to follow up on a decision that was a request made by the residents of Lorette. We'll talk of history, the active life plan. That, for tonight, that is what we'll talk about. In October, last October, the city received a petition that was signed by many residents from Lorette Street. And from there was a follow up done by the city. At the meeting on that same evening, the people were asking to remove the bicycle lane on one side. That's what was being asked. And during the presentation, things changed, and then they requested to remove it from both sides of the street. I have a few pictures to show you what is happening in that area. We have a picture of Chartersville and Lorette, Champlain. Today, we have a bicycle lane on Chartersville that goes up to the intersection of Lorette Street, and we have the bicycle trail on both sides of Lorette Street. We go down along Lorette Street on both sides up to Airview, and the objective of the bicycle lane is to make it to the Boys and Girls Club. We have a lane all through the city. We wanted to make it to the Boys and Girls Club, which is located in the Lakeburn area or Lakeburn sector. For the bicycle lane to be implemented, we had to look at the parking. What do we do with the parking to facilitate the bicycles that would be on those lanes? It was decided that throughout the city, the parking would be prohibited on one side of the street. On the other side, it would be prohibited but allowed during the winter months only. Here we show you the text for Lorette Street, specifically for Lorette. What it says is that on one side, the west side, is prohibited all year round. On the east side, on the side of the Boys and Girls Club, it is prohibited from April the 1st to November 30th to park on that side. Prohibited parking, and parking allowed from April the 1st to November 30th. So both places. To follow the petition, a meeting was organized with the residents. Every residents were invited. Out of 76 residents, a representative of 6 residences came to the public meeting. The purpose was to better understand the concern of the people and also to give information, some history on the network, on the bicycle trail network, and the active transportation in the city. Presentation that I make tonight, this is what was presented to the citizens on that evening. Uh, the reason for bicycle lanes, it's something that was started in 2010, 2011, and at the end of 2011, presentation was made to the council on the bicycle lane throughout the city and active transportation. February 2012, that plan was adopted by City Council. This gives us the blueprint of the bicycle lane network that we have throughout the city and how the different lanes meet one another. Why multi-directional on one side of the street versus the other side? Why bi-directional, multi-directional lane versus having a lane where the bicyclists are both on the same side of the street? The bi-directional lane create some difficulties. We've mentioned a few. There's more details in the information package that was given to the councillors, and this is information that was communicated to the city council in 2011-2012 when the city was studying the details. We talk about intersection. When we follow the streets, you have a potential conflict between the bicyclists uh, and the cars, and the bicycles circulates in one way, as is being requested by the law. The other risk, the other potential conflict is all private parking. If you have a house, every private driveway on one side or the other, it's easier and there will be less collision if we look on one side, if we concentrate on that, rather than to have to look on both sides. Finally, the conflicts of cyclists who meet on different directions, and then a car comes in a lane right beside. So we would have signalization that would be installed between the cars, as we are preparing to do in the marsh with Amiro Charlesville, or what we did on Central Street, where we have a lawn between the bicycle lane. I will let Jason present the active transportation plan. Your worship and councillors, the transportation plan will be revised with a public consultation in the fall of 2015. It's forthcoming. We did some work. We wanted the input from the public. This will be done this fall. So the objective of the active transportation plan is a reference tool as to the planning and the future development of the sidewalks. So we want to make sure that everything is interconnected. So the active transportation plan will allow us to better plan and to make sure that the trails goes with this bicycle lane and everything else. This will allow us to do exactly that. What is an active transportation? It's a mean of moving around without having to use a motorized vehicle, skateboard, anything that doesn't have a motor attached to it. The well-being of active transportation is a health benefit, transportation, the environment, a green city. So this is something that I like. Economy, we talk about the price of gas and parking. These are all well-being. Destination point, well, this is small on the screen, but in our plan, we have different points where we want to go. If we are uh, east of the city and we want to make it to downtown and vice versa, industrial park is very important to have some corridor, if I may say so, to make an active transportation without having to take the scenic route. We can have some boulevard for bicycles, for walking. The development criteria of bicycle lanes. So have a coherent and permanent network. We have the lanes reserved on the collective streets. Lorette is one of them. It's one of the reasons why there's a lane on each side. That was one of the standards that was adopted in 2012. A collector, there are some standards to be respected. It prioritizes the users outside the street of the street. But when we don't have the opportunity, we don't have the land, we don't have the possibility of having trails outside the street. That's when the bicycle lanes are very good, and it allowed different means of transportation. Future development, in all future development, new develop link sidewalks, trails, or bicycle lanes should be planned. We don't want to come to a trail and there's nowhere to go. Of course, each future development and even those that are from the past, we try to prove it each and every time. We want to make sure that the people will make it to their destination. Active transportation network, it's somewhat small, but it was a matter of making it to the Boys and Girls Club, and from that club, we know that there are possible development in the corner and in near future. So as far as we're concerned, we want to make sure that the users can go without using their cars. That is something that is very important. If we talk about recommendations, I'll leave it to Jacques to present the recommendations. So as far as the recommendation, following the public meeting, there were several internal meetings with the recreational service, the engineering service, and even discussions with other services to understand what was coming, what are the probabilities that things like this would become reality. The recommendation at the end of all that analysis is to maintain these bicycle lane as we have them today. The reason is that, as Jason explained, we have collectors right now. If we look at the Lakeburn Boulevard, no, Lakeburn Avenue that is built almost up to Lorette. We have Lorette, we have bicycle lane here today. There are some ways to go to join it, and very shortly we'll have a connection between the two streets, and we will really start to see the connections between the different areas with future development that are forthcoming. We don't see uh, to reduce the infrastructure that we have to have an access to what exists. So, for these reasons, we recommend to remain with the status quo. The benefits of status quo: we allow some safe corridor for bicyclists to make it to the Boys and Girls Club and to recreational installation. The bicycle lane comes with the prohibited parking. It's the people are not against bicycle lane; they're against the prohibited parking. The city studied all that in 2012. The compromise was on one part of the year to allow it on one side, and during the summer, it's important to reserve the corridor for the bicycles. It gives us access to the Boys and Girls Club, and here again, it's within the intention of the active transportation plan. For these reasons, this is the recommendation that we are putting forth to the City Council. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll try to answer them. Councillor Leblanc, have a question. Thank you, Your Worship. To go to the Boys and Girls Club, we have the bicycle lane that goes down Lorette. On the other side, on the eastern side of the Boys and Girls Club, is there any other way of making it there? Either a trail that would go behind the Barn Street? Is there a walking trail in the back? If you come in an easterly direction, you must use the smaller streets, the residential streets. Trail-wise, there's nothing on the east side of Boys and Girls Club. That is the final terminal for the time being. So everything comes from the west to the east. So you'd have to drive through the subdivision. Well, bicycle, if you want to make it to the Boys and Girls Club, one way is to take Champlain and go down Champlain. If bicycles should not be on the sidewalk, they should be on the street. So it takes you on a 4-lane street and with a speed of 70 kilometers an hour. So that's not recommended. The other option is to take Lorette. That is what we would privilege, and that's what the city is recommending to follow. There is an access in the back through Airview to go to the Boys and Girls Club. That's probably the only way, the only safe way to make it there. Today, that's the only way. There's some proposed plan to subdivide that sector between Fournier and Lorette. There was some interest shown to create a subdivision, and that would allow to connect Fournier with Lorette to avoid the part up the Lorette Street. And when this become a reality, we'll have to see if we still need the other bicycle lane that will go to Champlain. But the section on the south side would still be needed. Yes, Mr. Melanson. I just want to add, Your Worship, that on Airview and the Boys and Girls Club going towards Champlain, we own some property. When the city has made a decision on sports property, will bring our plans as to what we intend to do. So there are plans of making some trails that would go to Lorette and Airview, just to kind of prepare you for the future. All right. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I look on page 23. On one side of the street, you have a future sidewalk. What would stop it to have the sidewalk on that side? That we would have both lanes, bicycle lanes on the same sides with a line in the middle and arrows that show the direction. Those that are closer to the cars could travel facing the traffic, and the others would go in the other direction. They would be further. If it's a question of safety only, there is a way of doing it in another way. Page 23. Is that the one that you see on the screen? No, the one before. This one? Yes. You say what? You say that it's true that there is a sidewalk that is being shown. Sidewalk today in the same sector as where the bicycle lane is in the Lorette area. It's foreseeable that when Lakeburn and Lorette Street are joined, the sidewalk will make it to Lorette Street. That's what the design is showing. I did not really understand what you're saying. If the sidewalk is on one side of the street, we put the two bicycle lane in both directions on the same side, on the other side of the street. And the lane where the bicycles will be going contrary, and will indicate that those who are traveling opposite the traffic and those who are further from the light will travel in the other direction. It seems to me that the safety issue would be solved. Well, at least we would have to put a line between the two with an arrow that will indicate the direction in which the bicyclists must travel. So the conclusion from the staff when it comes to have a one-way, we should have a physical separation between the two, because if I use the design that you see on the screen, what will happen at the end is we will have a lane here, and the people will travel in this way and the bicycle in the other way, and the motor vehicle happens to be here. So that is the kind of installation that was not advised, because it was recommended to change the unidirectional lane with the lanes such as the one I just drew here. And the recommendation was to recommend against doing what I just showed for the reasons that I mentioned in my presentation. For safety reasons, the access, well, we have a bicycle that goes in one direction and the vehicles that come in the other direction right beside it. If the asphalt was wider, if it had been paved wider, it would leave space to have a little bit more rooms to feel at ease. So you can imagine a scenario. We have a bicycle that come in one direction here, and one that comes in the other direction, and a truck travels in the other direction. and the traffic travels right beside the bicycle lane. It's not a very comfortable situation for the bicyclist. He will freeze unless it's someone that is very well at ease. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to avoid. We want to standardize all over the municipality. We don't want to have a street with one kind of installation and another street with something different. What you're showing us in the case of what you will be doing. Both lane will be used by a vehicle also. The other way, there's only one lane. The other thing is, with this scenario, it does not allow for any parking on the street. But the present situation does not allow for any parking unless it's people in the winter, during the winter. While the scenario that I just drew, which is traveling on both sides, if there's no parking on, there's no scenario in the city of Dieppe that allow a parking space when there is a bicycle lane. If the objective is to create a space where the car can park, that is the concern from the people who live there. It's not the presence of the bicycle lane. If I understand correctly, it's the fact they cannot park. Scenario that I just drew here, but the scenario I was telling you about one side of the street where you could park, it would really obstruct the traveling lane. Put both on the same side, there's no room. We have to leave enough room for a bicycle in that direction, another one in the other direction to meet. There's just enough room for two cars to meet. There's no room to park unless we. In fact, if we allow the car to park on this side, it will bring the vehicle in the bicycle lane, and that would be dangerous. But if there's parking in the winter, it's still better to have both lanes on the same side. Today we allow parking on one side, and this gives an advantage to the bicycles. It allows the bicycle to move to travel in the same uh, direction as the motor vehicles. You never see a vehicles come face to face with you, and you're between the big car, big truck, and the bicycle. It will avoid that situation, just like school entrance to. You don't have to look at both sides when you come to an intersection. I would have thought it would be safer when I go against a vehicle. If I see you have, it's a little bit. We always encourage the runners to go to see the traffic that's coming towards them, not to be behind. Sorry, Mike.
Well, we could spend all evening here. We all have our own preferences, and there are all different types of systems and communities. I can tell you that, south of Montreal, when I was working in Brossard and Saint Lambert, all bicycles were on the same side of the street. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I saw those places too, but I think asphalt is the street surface probably wider, gives you more option, more wiggle room. Madame Dallaire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering, is there a direction for the use of vehicles and cyclists in the corner? Because I know that there are streets where it's maybe preference for shared streets. Would it be a good idea or not to have that type of thing shared, uh, say, rather than this? Well, if we go back to 2011, 2012, when the study was made, the decision was that if we have a collector street, we would have bicycle lanes like we have here on the screen. We want to encourage active transport. So it was a way of having things set up so that we could pick up the habit. When we went onto local streets, that's where we had shared streets. Airview, for example, is a shared street. New information on this, well, that type of thing is discouraged. The designated lanes there, the trend is more towards bicycle lanes or to have a trail that's outside of the highway. That's something new over the last couple of months. So we'll have to look into it and see what it means. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leblanc. Thank you. Second time at bat here. No, it won't be long. I think the question here is either we eliminate the bicycle lane to permit parking, or we leave it as is. That's the option we have with the width that we have. Well, yeah, philosophically, that's it. Do we want to encourage bicycle lanes? If we want to do that, what is the best way to have safe bicycle lanes? There'll always be resistance to change anyway. So, yeah, because if we permit parking, there's no room for bicycle lanes. That's it. Mr. Brideau, I'd like to know, Lorette Street, is it a busy street? I mean, for cars. Today I would say no, not that much. Average to low. I don't have any figures, but obviously it's going to increase when there's going to be the connectivity with Lakeburn, and also when Lorette is going to be extended towards Yvonne. I think that we'll start people wanting to use it to go to Champlain Street rather than to head towards to Dieppe Boulevard to go to Champlain. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Nolan, if we look at the background, the Champlain, Chartersville, Lorette, that's just my question. The bicycle lane, would it be continue on the corner? I see that there's a little bit, but does it continue on? It's no, it's a little farther. It's our page 7. No, not this one. The other one. The one before. The one before that. Yeah, that one. So the bicycle lane, does it continue in the corner, or does it disappear and there's no protection for the cyclists? Or technically maybe there should be a line. You're talking about the Chartersville and Lorette. So the line, does it continue? Does it continue? Well, right now there's no line in the intersection, but it continues on the other side of the street. So somebody's going up Chartersville and they want to go down Lorette. Technically speaking, they're not going to be crossing the street, but they would be continuing on the same side. Is he protected, or does the bicycle lane stop for 5 meters and then it starts again later? Or at the intersection, there's a stop here on Chartersville, so the cyclist has to stop and then proceed when there's no problem, and then he can go down Lorette Street. Then he turns when there's no vehicle, there's no line, there's no zone for bicycles there, specifically for bicycles. If you wanted to see bicycles, it was on the championship race. Yeah, I seen. I mean, during the race there from Champlain to Chartersville, whoa, there were a lot of tumbles right there. There was a lot of action. It was almost like a chicane in Formula One. Yeah, not on this, just on the same line of thought here. But shouldn't there be a line on the curve to continue to designate the bicycle lane to make sure that it's a bicycle lane? Why stop it at the intersection? The cyclist who's made his stop is going to feel danger if he wants to turn right to go down to Lorette. Is this the way the city decided to do it, or is this part of best practices to not have the line indicated on the asphalt? Is that so? If I understand the question, you would like to see the line extended like this on the screen. Well, it would be the same width in the curve, you know. So when you do your stop and then you turn right, you stay in your lane, and then you continue on Lorette. The question is, did we not? Don't we have a specific approach to show that the bicycle lane continues in the curve? Could there be something? I mean, cars should realize that it is a bicycle lane and that the bicycles have the priority. I'm not going to fight with a car or a truck because they're bigger than I am, but it's the same thing towards the Champlain. It's the same thing. The line stops at the entrance to the store, the corner store. So the blue lines that I drew here, we can't paint lines across. That's not what I wanted to say. No, directly. If I wanted to go to, if I want to turn left to Champlain Street, I'm on the bicycle lane. If I want to turn left, I have to stop, make sure that there's nobody coming from Chartersville, from Champlain, or that's coming up Lorette, and then I can enter onto Lorette. So that's a danger point right there. So we have to be careful to cross it. And then we can. So my question is there not a specific way to continue the paint on the asphalt to the point of the stop sign on Champlain, and the same way you drew it on the right on Chartersville to Lorette as you continue? It's just a question. I don't need an answer, but I just want to know because the paint is not there. We'll look into it. Here, I see there could be something like this here. On the other side, maybe the paint can go a little bit farther here, but we can't paint streets across the street because the bicycles don't have priority to cross the street. So we'll look to see if the line shouldn't be extended a little farther here, but there's no bicycle lane on Champlain Street. We want to make sure that the bicycles go on Chartersville Road. I think if we look at what was created to show the Acadie Street project at the intersection of Chartersville, it's an animated video. It shows the type of signage that's possible for cyclists, but even there, it does not go directly to the line because the bicycle lane is not on that side. You have to cross the street to get to the bicycle lane. So I think there's all sorts of complications. But I think the Moncton CEO realized that when you're riding a bicycle, it's risky. It's risky business. at the intersection that we've been just discussing here now, if we had to continue, well, people are on bicycle are going to think that they have the priority on the street. So, I mean, it's a shared responsibility. We have to remember that, and we have to remind people constantly that it's a shared responsibility between both of them, the cyclists and the cars. And then you have the pedestrian walkways that are fairly clear that should also give a certain amount of protection to cyclists. But I mean, nothing is going to replace proper judgment from the people. Common sense. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we thank you for the presentation. I hope that this presentation is going to be given to the 76 potential citizens, even if there are just 6 of them who showed up, because we know that there are 76 people who are interested, and I hope the presentation will be given to them as soon as possible. Thank you. All right, now I have to find my agenda because I was working on the project here. So next presentation is an update from Kodiak Transpo. Thank you, and welcome to all our stakeholders from Kodiak Transpo. I have Madame Angela Alain, who's going to be talking for Kodiak Transpo. Is that it? Or Marie-Claire is going to be starting. Our technical genius says that we have to wait a couple of seconds. Good evening. We have a couple of subjects tonight, so before starting, we'd like to show you a little video from an event that was part of the marketing plan. So we're just going to show you the video.
le dire.
So I'd like to thank Mr. Mayor, Councillor Cormier. It was early in the morning and it was cold, so really, thank you very much. It was almost as nice as this morning.
Gern Tarosky. Alex is our Director of Operations. I'm still getting used to pronouncing his name. We are going to present to you this evening what we recommend as a detour for the construction happening on Acadie. And I think it's down here.
Have you had a chance to see some of the suggestions that have come in from the public through Luc in the past few days? And I literally mean in the past few days.
Yeah, the only one that we've seen was a park and ride.
Right. Okay.
And that one we've discussed internally. But if there's any new in the last little while, we haven't had a chance to see them.
No,
I think Luc is away, so.
Yeah. Yes, he's at an international conference on participative public participation.
So basically, Alex and myself, we met with your engineers and also Luc to look at options for diverting from Acadie. We are on a schedule, and to try to keep that schedule as tight as possible and as close as possible for our customers is for us quite important. So we looked at a number of options, and what we'd like to present to you this evening is this option here. You have basically peak time service, which is typically 6:30 in the morning till about 9:30. And you have evening peak, which is around 3:30, 4 o'clock till about 6:30. And in between that, during those peak times, you have 3 buses on the road, okay, servicing the 95, the 94, and the 93. So on off-peak times, you only have 2 buses on the road. One bus goes back to the depot. And on those off-peak times, you have 1 bus that serves Centrale, the 93, all day long. And the 95 and the 93 are served by 1 bus. So they become half-hour loops, but it's served 1 hour. Okay, so basically we took all of those things into consideration and we came up with this option here. So I see where I can write. This will be fun. So Alex and I took a real good look at this option, and part of this option actually was presented to us by Luc, and we thought there was some merit in this option. Right now, and I don't know if this is going to write, yeah. So right now, the 95 goes from Champlain, the mall, all the way down all the way down here, Acadie, all the way down Amido to Fox Creek, the corner of Fox Creek and Amido, and then continues on, but it doesn't take this route here. It takes this route across here, and it goes back. So we would like to divert that route. Now, how do I erase? Here we go. So basically what we would like to do is divert and have a new route that we've paced already, and we've given it time because we know the traffic is going to be quite heavy. We know the traffic's going to be quite heavy here. So we would say that during peak time, this is just peak time service, you'd go back to your regular service on non-peak time because we feel the traffic won't be as bad and we'd be able to make most of our runs. So basically at peak time only in the morning and the evening, we'd have a bus doing this route here, down Frederick, and this is the transfer area. All right, so this bus basically wouldn't be doing this run here in the midst of all the construction. We're really trying to recommend that we stay away from that route. And if we didn't, one of our options was for this bus to reroute down Thomas. And by doing that, that means that we have 2 then buses going down this route. Why should we do that? So basically, this run would continue on, transfer, it would wait for the 93. The 94. The 93 is up on Champlain. The 94 bus, basically. All right, so they would all transfer here. So anyone on the 94 would transfer at this location here, and anyone, this would be the new peak time 95. And it would do pretty close to the same route, except that it would not do that section where we feel the traffic's going to really tie up our schedule. So we'd have 2 buses meeting here, and this bus would continue going, and the other bus basically would continue, we're going this way. It would continue on, pick up our folks, and then bring them in. So we'd only have 1 bus being diverted. Now, I should mention also that this 94, I want to call it the 93, the 94 basically on the regular route goes past Clérin-Comier. We wouldn't be doing that section. We feel this bus here is going close enough for those folks to be able to take the bus on this side. Now, there's probably things that I've forgotten, and I'm going to ask Alex, anything that we've...
There's a built-in makeup time from Fox Creek.
You get closer to the mic so that our thousands of listeners live on the internet can hear you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate it. There is some built-in time for makeup for the traffic that we're expecting. The construction will be here. The traffic we're predicting will be built up somewhere from here down. We're anticipating, because of the delays, there is a lot of time from this checkpoint. It's approximately 20 minutes to get to the transfer point. So the built-in makeup time is going to more than compensate for the delays caused by the traffic. The beautiful thing about this plan is that it keeps 1 bus in Dieppe during the peak hours. And it's a guaranteed transfer with the 94. So you have a constant influx of buses coming in from Champlain Place down to the transfer point, and then you have the 95, which will guarantee transfer with the 94 and then carry the customers. By doing this diversion, we're going to service as much of the present routing as possible.
Best at this time of the year than 4 months ago. Councillor Nolan, question.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. One, to me, transfer points just make sense. That's how all the major services tend to operate. But did you guys take into account a time, how did you call it, a time, makeup time along Thomas and Gauvin during those peak hours? Because I understand we put a traffic light at Thomas and Gauvin, but I'm still predicting that there's going to be major time delays down that route as well for the 94.
Yeah, during when we conducted the bus stop audit last week with Luke and some members of your staff, we did see the temporary traffic light there, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
It should help to move traffic.
Yeah.
But any way you look at it, construction this big is going to affect transportation, whether it's bus, cars, bicycles, whatever. It's going to affect something. So at the end of the day, we're hoping that this will work. Now, there's Plan B in case it doesn't work, and that is to expand on the diversion instead of just the peak hours, but during a whole day, probably till about 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, until the service subsides or the traffic subsides, and then we can go back to regular routing. But that's Plan B. We're hoping for Plan A to work, and we have a lot of faith in this. We put a lot of time into this, so we're kind of hoping that this does work. If it doesn't, then we have a Plan B, and then Plan C is we'll just panic.
Perfect. And there is a bus shelter at the transfer point as well?
Yeah, basically the bus will stop and wait for 95.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because of the 20 minutes from Fox Creek basically up to the transfer point, the 20 minutes is more than enough time, even if traffic impedes the bus. 95, the operator on 95 will be advised not to leave until such time the 94 meets up with it.
Okay.
The schedules might be thrown off, but at
Yeah.
least our customers
Yeah.
will be serviced. So it's not perfect,
Yeah.
but
It's a good temporary solution.
yeah, unfortunately.
All right.
The other
Perfect.
thing we wanted to do too is we want to try to be as consistent to our customer base as possible, and then not change every 2 weeks, saying, oh, and that's more frustrating to the customer. So we're trying to find and recommend to council a system that we feel is the strongest one we can present to you at this point in time. And if a month down the road it's really not working, then we will go to a plan B, but it's not what we want to do for our customer base. We're hoping that this works.
Yeah, and that's true. If I could just add to, I was here last year during the summer when there was heavy construction along Champlain, and we were basically adapting every day to a different road closure, a different diversion. And what happened was our customers were getting lost and not knowing where to go and where to catch a bus. Our operators were getting a little confused. So it didn't help. So I think when we met up with Luke, we kind of proposed that we should try a basic diversionary routing to begin with, and then work off that. We may have to change a little bit, but at least our customers will know basically what the diversionary routing will be during the construction. Moving it every week isn't going to help anybody. It's not good for us, and it's hard to get the message out to all our customers. It's very, very difficult. We can put it on the website, we can put it in the newspapers, but unfortunately, folks, people just are, we are creatures of habit, and that's what happens.
And if I just one last point here, we have a lot to do to get ready for this. It's not a matter of just, starting this tomorrow. We need at least 2 weeks to get ready for this. Basically, we need to get this all plotted so that that the real-time images on our website will actually mimic these routes. We also need to send information to InfoDev, who keeps our stats for the APCs, the bus counting, or the passenger counting system. So, and then also we need to promote this. We need to let your citizens know that these changes are coming. So we need to give them a bit of an advance notice.
Question de la part des membres du Conseil, Monsieur.
Questions from members of council. Mr. Beliveau. Thank you, Your Worship.
Still to take place. I think that, are you gearing up for it so that you're going to let us know ahead of time that as of a certain date, these new routes are in effect?
If you give us the approval today, we should be okay to go, I think, by June the 1st.
Merci.
Monsieur Leblanc.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. The transfer point would be the corner of which streets?
It's Central and
Just a
Matilda.
Matilde.
Mathilde and Central? Thank you.
There's lots of room there, and it's a lot of space there for 2 buses to meet up.
Okay.
So it's a convenient spot. I did the routing with my own car and, with the supervisor. So we found that to be the most safest location for the transfer point.
Yeah, because that was a bit of my concern, as to have a secure spot we can pull over 2 buses and still not block traffic flow if anybody else is in that area driving through.
And the other point too is that we've kept the routes going the same way so that no one's crossing the street to be able to, jump on the next bus. So they'll be on the same side.
Same side of the road.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Beliveau.
Merci nouveau, Monsieur le Maire. It's just that when I'm thinking of that here, that area actually happens to be in front of l'école Anna l'Enfant. So you're going to have a month of June that's going to be fairly hectic with the school buses coming in, parents dropping off kids, and then starting up in September, you have the same scenario. So ongoing, going forward, you're going to have that challenge. And that place between, 8:30, 8:45 is going to be a busy spot. So.
Yeah. So if you look at the map, we do have an area on Central to adjust if needed.
Okay.
And truly, just being honest with you, things can change week to week. But the important thing is that we have the basic routings down. That's small in nature. To move it down Central is easier to do than having to reorganize this routing. But yeah, that's easy to do.
Je ris parce que ce midi, j'ai participé.
I'm laughing because I participated in a pizza party with un homme un enfant students, and we were talking about environment, and the question that we were asking the children was, is it better for the environment to have 6 people in one vehicle, or to have 6 vehicles with one person in a vehicle? And obviously, fifth graders could tell us that for the environment, it's better to have 6 people in one vehicle. Okay, that's interesting. Could you talk to your parents who like to go to mon enfant's school and leave the school in children? Because with the situation in the marsh, there's going to be a lot of added traffic. So maybe the parents, encourage your parents, we told the children, to let you take the bus in the morning to go to school. So I don't know if that's going to help, but sometimes kids have better answers than we can have sometimes. It's always one of the reasons for traffic on Central and Thomas. It's always a problem. So are there any other questions from members of council? If not, thank you for the suggestions. We hope that things will go well for everyone, obviously.
We're really going to be on the thick of things by the end of the week or beginning next week. And now people are coming out with ideas which are difficult to execute at this point in time. On a même, à un moment donné,
we even had one point, a suggestion was to have articulated buses,
but then somebody, they don't move very good, but which we're not in winter, but you know, everybody, tout le monde a des bonnes idées maintenant.
Everybody has good ideas, but I mean, if we had heard these ideas maybe a month and a half ago, maybe we would have had the opportunity to get prepared, park and drive. It's a little late for that now, but I mean, this is going to last for 6 months. So maybe park and drive is going to work to bring people downtown. But I mean, we're all slaves of our cars, unfortunately.
Tomorrow, you'll...
The council is forbidden to make decisions at this meeting.
Oh, at this meeting, okay. So how do we proceed, can I ask?
We'll talk about it Monday next week, and you'll get an answer then.
Oh, okay, we have to wait. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, let me say this. It looks like the best alternative. I would say plan for it. You'll get the okay next week, but plan for it. C'est la réalité.
That's the reality. Our strategies and public policies meetings are meetings of discussion. They're not meetings of decisions. Decisions are only made during the official meetings of the council. But what I hear around the table, it's probably a good idea to start your planning now, but we'll really have to decide next week. I haven't heard any objections, and that's a good thing. Thank you.
Is there anything else? No? Oh.
We conducted a bus stop audit in the city of Dieppe over a 2-day period with staff from Dieppe. We primarily did that because of complaints from our customers about not knowing where the buses stop. We've had some requests for buses to accommodate customers in unsafe locations, which creates complaints, which creates confusion, and which creates a lot of people being frustrated. So we did all the routes, and all three routes have been finished. We are going to, the staff from Dieppe will start working on the new bus stops locations, remove the old ones that are no longer in service, and we should hopefully be ready to go by summer. After we have done that, we will then update our GPS and InfoDev, which is our automatic passenger counters, to match the stops with where the people get off and on. And there will be a community program to advise customers that we are no longer a wave me down type of service, but you will have to wait for a bus at a proper stop. And we hope that that's going to alleviate a lot of the safety concerns and complaints that we've had from both operators and from our customers as well. So all good stuff. I want to thank Luc for doing a great job, and Councillor Cormier, so much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Okay, merci. Madame Alain, bonsoir.
Merci pour votre
Thank you for your attention.
So,
On a-t-il le droit de discuter de finances, nos réunions ici ce soir, non?
Can we discuss finance here tonight?
an aging fleet at Kodiak Transpo, and you have a fairly good fleet. You have 2 buses that are 7 years old and one that's 16 years old. So the 16-year-old is causing some problems.
That happens with 16-year-olds. Believe me, I've raised 3 daughters.
Very good analogy, for sure. And we have quite a few of them in our fleet as well. So I just wanted you to be aware. And I know Luke is monitoring the finances as we go month to month with invoicing.
It has already been raised with council,
Okay.
yes.
Very good. So it's just for information, because we are projecting to be over budget on direct maintenance due to repairs. So if there's any questions on that, we'll certainly answer them.
Well, one question that came up, in fact, in that discussion was why 48-seat buses, or however many people we have on those buses?
38.
Given our, how many?
38.
38, okay. Why not whatever's the next number down, or 2 steps down?
Yeah. There's all different models available, different seating, different configurations you could look at to replace that bus with, yes. It's not, if you get half the seats, it's not necessarily half the price. So it is.
I understand that,
it's an
that part.
evaluation that way. But, and they're more of a medium-duty bus, so you'd be looking at probably a 10-year bus if you're looking for less seating instead of a 20-year bus, which is what you have today.
So you're telling me my 16-year-old is good for another 4 years?
Well, I would encourage it to be replaced before 20. Only because of the significant repairs we're putting into it. And it's a 1 year, typically it's 12 months to get delivery of a new bus. If you're looking for smaller or large, actually, smaller might be 10 months, but it's not quick turnaround. So it's something to consider for your capital.
Okay. Merci.
Merci.
Question, Monsieur le Conseiller Nolan.
Thank you, Your Worship.
One of our 7-year buses is almost to that point as well as the 16-year bus. I think that was mentioned in the past.
It has significant mileage, 600,000 kilometers, one of the buses.
And
so
the
we
lifespan's about
typically
1
go
million.
1 million kilometers, 800,000 to 1 million kilometers is what you'll probably get out of the life. So you're at 600,000 right now.
So probably another 4 years max too.
Probably,
you're looking
or
at-
you'll have to do some overhaul work to those buses. Yes, they'll be, it's not a bus that you'd have to dispose of, but you'd have to invest in some overhaul work to it.
Okay.
And that might be worthwhile. It would be a cost-effective measure rather than full replacement, because a 40-foot bus for replacement, you're probably looking at 470,000, maybe higher than that. It depends all the options.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci. Thank you. Pas d'autres questions de la part des membres du...
No further questions from the councillors. No more presentation from Kodiak. Thank you for your visit. Next item, we were asked to consider to receive Mrs. Nathalie Melançon, who is spokeswoman for FIFA. And the event is coming up in the region from the University of Moncton Stadium. Mrs. Melançon, good evening and welcome. Good evening to you, Your Worship. I'm told you want 7 minutes. I'll respect 7 minutes. Thank you, first of all, for having invited us. I'm happy to be here to talk to you about the World Women Cup, FIFA, the greatest female sport event in the world. When you talk about the female event, it's the greatest female event in the world. We're having an opportunity to receive it in our region. How many countries are involved? 24 countries have competition for the last 3 years. The 24 best countries will be here in Canada. It's an increase. That is a good sign for the women's soccer. Before we had 16 countries in the competition. It's very good for the development of the sport and especially the development of women's sports. There will be 52 matches in Canada and of course one winning team. And whatever, even though we may think that Canada loves hockey, yes, we have long winters. Hockey is popular, but it's soccer and football for the next few days. I challenge you to call it football because everywhere else in the world, that's what we call it. Football is practiced at 44% by our youth in Canada. It's the sport that is most practiced for many reasons. We have seen a momentum that has grown in the last few weeks, whether it's the world women team or the male, if we go back to 2012, the Olympic Games in London, where the women team won the bronze medal and they lost the silver or the gold medal. I've talked about under 20 World Cup. Some from the under 20 at the national level. We're talking about 4 hosts. We had 32 matches and 16 countries. Across Canada, we talk about more than 288,000 spectators and 1,000 volunteer. When we get closer to us in Moncton, it was 8 matches over 5 days. 10 countries played in Moncton and visited the area, including Nigeria, that made it to the final. Maybe you'll remember that. We had more than 34,000 spectators in Moncton and more than 225 volunteers that help us to make it a success. If we compare to what is coming in June, it's different. We talk about 6 areas: Vancouver, Winnipeg, Toronto, Moncton, another one. We talk about 24 countries. We talk about 1.5 million spectators across the country, and it'll be bigger than the Vancouver Olympic Games, and it will be more than 2,000 volunteers that will help us to make a success of that tournament. Is from June the 6th to July the 5th. When we come to Moncton or in the area, we talk about 7 matches over 5 days, which includes a trial basis, and you'll have a pamphlet on your desk the 9th, the 13th, 15th, and 17th, 21st of June, and the countries that will be in Moncton. We were lucky. We have France, England, Colombia, Mexico, Ivory Coast, Norwegia, Brazil, Costa Rica, and possibly 2 other countries that will come for the round of 16 according to the elimination results. So a very large caliber. Some of those countries are in the top 10. We talk about 20,000 spectators in Moncton, some temporary seatings have been added with close to 300 volunteers that will be in the area and are already helping us to make sure that it is a success. This gives you a picture of what is being accomplished, never been done, an event that is spread over 6 hosts from east to west. It's quite a challenge. We talk about timetable. It's quite an adaptation as much for the athletes as for the organizing committees. What we try to organize is something big, something that has never been done before. To give you a more specific overview of the schedule, the first game in Moncton, I would draw your attention, France against England. These are years of history that will be fighting on the field. We have it here in Moncton, so we encourage everyone to be there on June the 9th. We'll be receiving Brasilia, one of the best players in the world, will be in Moncton. We'll have quite a high caliber, and of course, the round of 16 could see USA come in the area. That brings a lot of spectators, but a lot of media. All of these countries bring with them international media. So about 80 international photographs are coming to Moncton. We already have more or less 100 media of international level that have asked us to come and make history on the articles. Some articles, whether it's for tourism, economic, or whatnot. Our region will be seen by the media and by the spectators. To give you a more global image, soccer or football is called the game of the world. We talk about 129 countries that have started this competition, 129 countries that have fought to make it up to the 24 top ones, and these are the 24 we will see in June. The colors are all countries that have been considered or have played in the qualification round. So it really unites the world, and we'll see a part of them in our region. We talk about promotion and visibility. Of course, our region will receive a lot, has already received a lot, whether it be visit from FIFA or world teams. We found out last week that BBC is sending teams. They will be here early June, and this brings quite a visibility. We have the special participation of the Canada team, our national team, football team, on which some athletes came to visit, whether it be soccer or community activities, and all this inspiration, all that visibility for our young people is very good. We also have some concrete things like the Canadian royal money. So 10 pieces that were struck for those games in Canada. Collectioners consider that they are special. We have a stamp also. So the tournament will travel not only to Canada but around the world. And we have quite a logo, quite a bit of marketing, and so they're counting every day. They take a picture of it. So we feel that FIFA is in town even before the tournament. You may have heard of the Coca-Cola Trophy tourney. It's special. It can only be touched by the winners or the head of state. We had it here. If we could take a picture of it, it's really something that the football amateurs appreciated it. The whole promotion for the airport, the team that will land in the area, the first thing that they will see is the airport. And we found out recently that France and England would arrive on June the 5th around noontime. So we want to build a whole media event. We want people from the community that will be present to receive the best athletes in the world. Of course, there's everything that goes with local soccer team. The Dieppe soccer team had a change in its chairmanship. we're able to work well together to involve the young people, to have them in our activities, to involve them when the athletes arrive, to try and inspire them, whether it be on the new artificial surface that these young people can play on the same surface as their ideal people, and that has to do with visibility. When it comes to legend heritage, there's a lot. We talk about the economic impact. We received a preliminary report that came out some time ago, and we foresee some economic fallout of $337 million throughout Canada, of which 44 million for New Brunswick. So these are people that will live, stay in hotel, eat in restaurants, visit. It's the jobs that will be created. We're a team of 16 or 18. By the time the tournament starts, we'll be 24. There is something to be said, and everything will be confirmed after the tournament, of course. As far as economic fallout, there will be a report. Infrastructure, whether it's the stadium or high schools that have received artificial surface, whether it be everything, all the investment that is made in buildings and hotels where the athletes and the media will live. We have 300 volunteers that are trained. We spend a lot of time with our volunteer to educate them, to teach them, to train them how to manage such an event. There's a whole protocol involved. And for your next events, it will be useful to have volunteers that are trained and are able to do a good job. We've already seen an increase in the registration. Of course, we aim an active lifestyle. If it's not football or soccer, whether you want to take a new sports, walk or bicycle, everything that can inspire youth. We have young people that had an opportunity to go and meet their idol, to go get their soccer ball in Europe and bring it back to Canada. And you will see about 100 that will be on the ground in Moncton and all over Atlantic Canada. They will be accompanied by captain and the bulkheads and all those that are responsible to pick up the balls, the balloon. Of course, it leaves you with the next candidacy. What we do here is seen by a lot of people, whether it be the Games of Francophonie that's coming here, whether it's the Congrès Mondial. Success of this event will reflect on your next and will show what Moncton and the Atlantic region, the city of Dieppe, and what Canada is able to do as a country or as a host region. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. I wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Good evening. Okay, next item on the agenda concerning the climate changes. We would ask Mr. Jacques Pinter and Alexandre Girard. That's this is a follow-up to a public meeting that was held about a month ago, maybe more. Approximately, Your Worship. Good evening, Your Worship. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. The purpose of this presentation is to present to you protection means against floods caused by extreme events or climatic changes. So, the plan of the presentation, I have 9 issues to deal with. The objectives, the history, the studies on the existing the criteria of conception of design, the costs that are related to these recommendations, and also the next steps. So, as far as the objective, Mr. Painter, I would simply make sure to speak in the mic so that for the simultaneous interpretation for the people who are translating, but also for our audience on the website. 15,000 people are watching you tonight, so we'll start selling commercial ads. The objective of the study is to develop a strategy of protecting the lower elevation and also to develop some designs and option of interventions to protect the population, the infrastructure, and also the essential services. So in order to divide the study zone, we have kept the study that was done in 2011 by ourselves. That study wanted to determine the different water level on different temporal zone, what we call a return period. For this study, we chose a total level of 10.5 meters that represents the Saxby storm. If that's the level of water of the Saxby storm was 10.2 meters. If it should happen today with the land in Atlantic Canada and the rising, sorry for my throat, I caught a cold on the weekend, it will reach a level of 10.5 meters or 10.5. We took that level as a planning figure to limit the study. If you see the visual, the study zone, it includes 5 sections, which I will talk about shortly, but it's more or less east of the Perigoriac River, which includes the whole zone, spatial zone, and with a water level of 10.5, and also we took another piece of land of 10.5 to 13.5 as the level curve, and with this 10.5 to 13.5 is where there can be a drawback of the surge, what we call the sewer backup. So we have decided to study in 5 sections. The first section is Paul, it's Champlain Place. Second is Chartersville Marsh. The third section is Amiro Street. And the fourth one is Fox Creek. And the fifth one is the Dover Road. So we have made an analysis of the planning and technical study for each one of these sections. And we dealt with density of the population, the use of land, essential services, and the infrastructures. Just to give you an example, as for the population, you see here on the screen for the population under the level of 10.5, the most important sections are 2 and 4. There's not too many people in section 1. I talk about the permanent citizens, permanent residents. A lot of people come and go in those sections, but they don't live there permanently. The next table will show you the size per zone, and quickly we can see that the main zone is the zone of flooding ground. The second is residences, and the third one is the commercial highway. Next, as an example, for section 3 and 4 infrastructures, we did some mapping where with all the infrastructures and transportation systems, the pipe in running water, and so on and so forth. This visual will show you the situation for section 3 and 4, but we did the same thing for all 5 sections. Next, we have developed standards of conceptions. This is to document the construction if need be. And these design standards or the criteria deals with safety plan, planning, horizon and protection, change of natural resource, perturbation of existing water, change of landscaping, legislation, financial consideration, financial limitation, and also the question of warning the people when we have an extreme event. We've also developed some criteria for some backup edge and designs, geotechniques, general consideration and number of construction and other services during the building period.
Question?
Next thing would be the risk analysis. The risk is related to consequences. So the drawing that you see here, we're talking about 3 factors that are necessary to be able to assess the risk. Talking about a source of danger, which in this case is water, flooding. There has to be a receptor. In this case, it would be the population and the infrastructures. And we also need a corridor. The source of danger by which the danger can touch the population and infrastructure. And the intersection of the 3 factors, this is where you find the risk consideration. So we used 3 ways to assess the risk of the situation in question. The first way to assess the risk is to look at the speed of the current and the depth of the water. What you see visually here shows that the higher the speed of the current and the deeper the water, the biggest the risk. That's logical. To be able to assess really this factor, we evaluated the water for all the 5 sectors. Here you see a drawing that shows you that with a level of 10.5 meters and a level of ground at 7.5 meters, there's a depth of water of 3 meters. For an elevation of 9.5 meters gives you a depth of water of 1 meter on the right-hand side of the drawing. So if we evaluated these depths for all 5 sections. Here you see section 1. The blue represents a depth of between 1 to 3 meters. The green is from 0 to 1 meter. And the red is more than 3 meters. So you see here for section 1, it's more or less the whole region that would be flooded in the case of 10.5 meter flooding, so it would be the basically the whole area would be flooded almost. There would be a 3 meter depth of water. For section 2, you see that the greatest part of that section, the level of or the depth of water would be more than 3 meters. For section 3, it's similar to section 1. The depth of water for the most of the area would be approximately 1 meter. For section 4, Fox Creek, it's more than 3 meters because it's more or less a valley with sides that are pretty steep. And for section 5, it's a mix of depth of more than 3 meters and from 1 to 3 meters. So that's for the depth of water. Now, for the speed of the current, it would be similar to high tide at Petitcodiac. So the speed would be approximately 0.5 to 1 meter a second, which is not too quick. So it's mainly the depth of water that would be important. The second way of assessing the risk would be to look at the population density. So you see in this image shows the population for the 5 sections. And once again, it's concerning the residences or the citizens, the permanent residences. It's once again the sections 2 and 4 where you have most of the population. For the other sections, it's not as severe. Here you show the risk by tax base for residentials and non-residential, and we can see easily that for the section 1 the tax base is a very important one. It's Champlain Place, all the retail stores, and for the others it's a mix depending on the residential tax base and the non-residential tax base. We have to find the balance, for example, because for section 1, the tax base is very important, but there's no permanent and specific population, whereas in the other section, the tax base is not so important. It's, if you compare it to section 1, but the permanent population is pretty big. Concerning Champlain Place, for example, at lunchtime, we can be 10,000 people in that section. So we have to think both ways, the permanent population and the non-permanent population. We have to have systems set up that take into consideration these differences. So I said that we used 3 ways. So risk has something to do with depth and the speed, the population, infrastructure, and the tax base. But we also have to apply the criteria of the ABC, the Association of Barrages, dams. For that association, what is important is loss of life, loss of economic value, loss of environment, ecology. And taking into consideration these 3 ways of calculating the risk, we end up with a global classification of total risk. For section 1, 2, and 4, the risk is fairly high. Section 3, it's a significant risk. And for section 5, it's really very low risk. The study also considered the question of protection. So we suggested a mandate, optimal protection for property and persons that would be flooded caused by extreme events, storm surges, high tides, intense precipitations, due all to the climate changes. So for the options, there are two approaches. There's the non-structural approach, which would involve policies, regulations, control for the development, zoning, subdivision bylaws, etc. There's also a structural approach. So we need protection for the wet zones. In other words, the water can enter into a building, and there should be measures to make sure that the damages are minimal. For dry protection, that means that the water cannot enter into a building. There's also engineering conceptions, for example, construction of dikes or riprap along rivers, or drainage systems, which would be improved for individual properties. There are all sorts of protection measures. There are some innovative measures. It's all a question of what is practical, and what is financially available. You see different images of different possibilities, so we can protect the building. Or there could be systems, damming systems that are innovative, that permit traffic when it's necessary. But in case of an emergency, there's an automatic dam system that's set up. Here you see a visual. On your left you have a dike, and on top of the dike there's a system. When the water rises, there's pressure on the top of the dike, and there's a barrier that automatically raises. The advantage of this is that you keep the view, but it gives you a certain amount of protection in case of high water. It's a very expensive measure of protection. Here you see an analysis of all the different costs, capital costs involved for the protection, wet and dry protections. There's also the option of purchase land, purchase buildings. It's not recommended because they're very expensive, but there are municipalities who have gone that way. So for section 2, you see the costs. We won't go through all of them. 2, 3, and 4. Maybe I'll just make comments when I talk about recommendations. All that to say is that the report includes the assessment, the evaluations, and the costs for all the options, structural or non-structural. Here you see section 2. We propose the construction of a dike of approximately 2.4 kilometers, the level of the height of the dike would be 11.5 meters, $1 to $2 million for the construction. For Section 4, also, the recommendation is the construction of a dike, a length of approximately 1.6 kilometers at a height of 11.3 meters, and the construction costs would vary between $600,000 and $1.6 million. Here you see the construction of dikes. At the top you have the Chartersville Marsh, and then at the bottom it would be Fox Creek. So, for recommendations, as I mentioned, we have to find a balance. When you choose the one recommendation from another, we have to find something that is practical, that is affordable. So we're looking for measures of protection. The capital costs of which would be the least possible, but with the best protection. So for Section 1, recommendation, my classification for Section 1 would be total protection against flooding with a dry type of protection. So they would protect the individual structures. Costs would be would have to be determined at that stage of the study. The other infrastructures and the equipment would not be protected. Secondly, and that is the recommendation that I believe is the most logical, is due to the regional role of Champlain Place and the retail shops around the area and the transport system with the roundabout. It's really a very important regional role, so it would be a regional engagement to determine a specific approach that would be comprehensive. So it would involve the city of Dieppe, the city of Moncton, the province, and probably due to the regional importance of the area, it could also affect other regions. Thirdly, for Section 1 would be amendment to the zoning so that minimal elevations of buildings be at 10.5 meters. All that would be necessary would be the process of amending the regulations. Is not necessarily easy. The problem with this is that there's no physical protection, and the regulations would be amended little by little. For the zoning changes and other for the other sections, I'm not going to be repeating all these recommendations for the other sections. So for the Section 2, once again, the first thing would be to modify the zoning bylaws. Secondly, like I mentioned, would be to construct a dike 2.4 kilometers long at a height of 11.5 meters. It costs for between 1 and 2 million. We have to say that it's these capital costs do not include the legal costs, the purchase of land, the engineering conceptions, which represents approximately 30% of the total figure. Section 2, once again, would be to improve the drainage systems for properties, also install wet type protections. Because many houses would be involved, it would cost between 2.3 and $2.5 million. For section 3, first recommendation again would be to amend the zoning bylaws. The second recommendation would be to build a wet type protection. You see the cost around $400,000. And for section 4 would be to amend the zoning bylaws once again, and the second recommendation would be to install a drainage system and with a partial protection. In this case, it would be approximately $800,000 to $900,000. There would be a third recommendation for section 4 to build a dike of an approximate length of 1.6 kilometers at a height of 11.3 meters. And once again, depending on the material, the cost would run from $600,000 to $1.6 million. For section 5, because of the low risk at this time, we would recommend that it stay as is for the time being. Second recommendation would be amending the zoning bylaws in that sector in flooding, for flooding lands. The next steps, there's a consensus as to what has to be protected, consensus on the possible options per section. Decisions would have to be made, and also to define the conception and the costs. We're at the stage of the conception at this time, so it would have to be a question of defining how and how much. So thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Questions from members of council and or from the public on the question? Please, those who have questions, please come up to the mic. Identify yourself, please. Hello. I'm one of the owners. I received an envelope from the city of Dieppe. Since I bought the house, it was flooded 5 or 6 times. Obviously, dikes are really nice, but what happens for flooding, it's when the snow falls, when the rain falls. So the dikes protect against the river, but what does it do for when the snow falls and the rain falls, which is, and it's especially in spring when the snow melts, this is where it causes the majority of the damage. So there has to be a drainage system which would be functional, because the water wasn't coming around the house, it was coming from the drain. It wasn't draining, it was a big problem. I see that Madam Spencer is taking notes in engineering. Where do you live again? It's at 128 Virginia. That's where Robert and Muriel live. That's my house there, but I mean, my house got flooded a couple of times, so it would be great because I pay the city of Dieppe, so I'd like to have a final solution so that it doesn't happen anymore in the future. I think there are two houses in that area that present problems, if I remember properly. Yeah, it's not just the melting. There are different other factors. It's an issue that's being reviewed by engineering and people from public works and the water and sewers, Eric Dubé. And I know that we talked with the people living in both houses, and I think that there are ideas that have been presented to solve the problem, but it's more than one problem. If I remember the discussion that we had, according to section 2, it's not just my house. No, it's the whole area. That whole area there. It's in front, behind, next door. It's some of them are worse than others. Even there's no flooding from the river. There's an problem that occurs annually. So I think work is being done there, or there's work being done on that issue. That's all I can tell you. We're really aware of this. It was brought to us, and we're working with the citizens in the area. How close are we to a solution? I'm not too sure. According to this, it would solve the problem for flooding from the river, but it doesn't give any ideas for solutions when the rain and the snow. Yeah, that whole section is very low. If I remember properly, it's one of the lowest areas. I mean, we're talking about the level of the municipality. It's one of the lowest areas of the whole municipality. And if we consider our system of sewers also, I know that we've got solutions, not necessarily the best solutions. It's a question of what is going to work, what is not going to work. I mean, I'm an owner, and it would be great to have a solution. Yeah, okay, we agree that it is not the city who built those houses. I don't want to start an argument, but we're trying to find solutions for this. I don't know where they're at in the details. There'll be a follow-up done, and I think we have your name, and yeah, I'll give my my contact numbers and all that with Angèle. It would help a lot.
Come on, good-looking guy like you, you know, to be on the web, you never know. This could be your break. This could be a lifetime break, man. Can you please identify yourself?
My name is John Toogood. I'm representing WG Toogood Limited.
Okay.
We've got commercial and residential properties in the area.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, with current building code, how far above sea level do you have to be to construct a new building with the current code?
Okay. Alexandre, si tu peux peut-être répondre à cette question-là.
Alexander, maybe if you can answer that question.
Like currently with our zoning bylaw, for areas that are being developed along or around Chartersville Marsh, we're requiring a minimum basement elevation of 8.5 meters.
Currently 8.5.
Yes. Currently, it's whatever's surrounding the Chartersville Marsh area. So that's the prescription that's within our zoning bylaw, and it's also being addressed within our municipal plan, the 2008 municipal plan, which is currently under our jurisdiction right now.
But that's very much subject to change given the new information that we've received over the last few months. and I know what's being recommended to people when they come in and ask for building permits these days in those areas. It's being recommended to go to a much higher level.
Yeah, I'll be able to elaborate on a bit.
Yeah, on your
yeah.
maybe Alexandre's presentation in a few minutes will answer some of your questions with regards to proposals that are forthcoming and as part of the review of the municipal plan. Because obviously, with the information we've received over the last 6 months, part of the resolution is not just building a dike. It's also what we're going to build in the future, going forward. So. If there are no other questions, in fact, we'll ask Alexandre to begin his presentation. Monsieur Girard, and for any, if you need help with the train, tu comprends assez, OK? Avec un nom comme Too Good, ça fait longtemps que tu es ici, je suis certain que tu comprends.
With a name like Too Good, you've been living here for a long time. I'm sure you understand French. To your worship, to follow Mr. Painter's presentation, we are here today to discuss the discussions we've had inside the municipality and through the community on climatic change. It's been almost a year, at least a year, that the city has been working with different departments to look at the context of climatic change, and through this we've mandated someone to clarify us on certain issues, and recommendations were presented to you a few minutes ago. The objective today of my presentation is to look at one facet of the recommendation that are being proposed by AMEC and to look at the context of the regulations. Here, we want to discuss the first generation of regulation dealing with concerning climatic change. Since the report that was presented to us, we've looked at the information that was presented by the Committee on Climatic Change, and we are proposing a regulations. The first thing we must do is to incorporate principles and proposals inside the development plan, the municipal plan. And within the municipal plan and zoning bylaw, we intend to undertake very shortly. We intend to propose to the council some important amendment. Within the documents today, I only want to talk briefly about some of these changes that we would like to propose. One of these changes would be to incorporate some proposals dealing with flooding and climatic change, to bring in some information that came out of the AMEC report, and also to validate and to implement the adaptation plan to climatic change that the municipality has developed and that was adopted also by the council. Another important section of the municipal plan has to do with the community facility installation and the emergency measures plan. We must look at a document that deals with that context of the municipality to look to incorporate new measures inside that emergency measures plan. Something else we must incorporate also within the proposal is to see if there's any other studies that could be done to clarify us about something else, about some other facets that the climatic change, on which climatic change could have an impact and to develop place on surface water inside the municipality. These are only principles to give us guidelines inside the municipality. So a proposal that would be concrete as to an amendment of the zoning bylaw would be to add new definitions inside the zoning bylaw to structure the regulations that is being proposed. Here we talk about incorporating new definitions such as habitable space, occupied surface, and also, so when we talk about habitable space, we include space where a living habitable space and the occupied floor space, designated surface of inside a floor reserved to commercial, institutional, industrial, and except for garage. And the last one represents information document used to inform the property of possible flooding risk related to development work at a height of less than 10.5 meters. So we have to make a difference between residential and commercial and industrial. So one of the proposals that we have incorporated inside the zoning bylaw is, notwithstanding the other provisions of this municipal plan, it would be that no development of a habitable space be undertaken, and we should have a minimal space of 10.5 meters. We should raise the habitable floor of 10.5. All construction requests must be accompanied by drainage plan that shows the height of the habitable space. What you see in front of you is to make the difference between residential and commercial. And here we see there's an opportunity of adapting the commercial building to a height of 9.25 meters. So to go slightly under the 10.5 meters, but to continue to inform the owners that there is a risk with the climatic change by making them sign a disclaimer as to the climatic change. And the last proposal is to mention that when there is a request for a building a garage, it would be allowed even if it's less than 9.25, but only requirements are respected. That the critical height must be at least 9.25, and that an engineering solution is supplied with the building application unless the criteria can be abolished by a responsible person or a person that acts. I just want to go through the pictures. I can maybe explain what all of this means. The first picture you have in front of you, the image is, if we talk about habitable space, we talk about a residence. All the habitable space should be developed over the 10.50 meters. What we are proposing in the regulation. Another example here would be, once again, to have the habitable space develop over the 10.50 meters, and the image represents another kind of single dwelling, slab under it. This image shows another kind of housing, and we refer to 10.5 meters. We talk about habitable space over the 10.5, and if we were to develop a basement under the 10.5, we would not recognize it as a habitable space. That kind of that would not be allowed. It would not be favored, because a basement would always be used as a habitable space. They will put their property, they will have electrical panels. So that kind of development is not used for housing. We want to encourage people to have it over 10.5. If it was a spacing, parking space, within a business facility, we will recommend that it be at 9.25. The critical space be at 9.25. We could go under the 10.5, but for a housing here, we see that how I was saying, with a garage that is attached to it could be converted into habitable space, either to put an electrical panel, to store some property. We want to avoid the loss of any materials you have in front of you. Another example with a crawl space. So here we recommend habitable space over the 10.5, even if there was a possibility of having a crawl space under the 10.5. Here we would force that every potential space be over the 10.5. Here again, we want to reduce the potential loss. And to answer your question for the garage here, we favor that it be over the on top of 10.5 and not under. So here, the other concepts, the occupied floor space for the commercial institutional. We talk about occupied floor space, and here again we talk above the 10.5. The requirement of 10.5 could not be met. We would recommend to go to 9.25 meter with the signature of climate change or disclaimer. Here again, we play the role of informing the owner that there are risks of developing under the 10.5. The 9.25 represents a 100-year storm. Here in our definition, we refer to a special use that we could find in industrial sectors, commercial or institutional, such as hotel, daycare center, health services use. We would force them to all go over 10.5. We would not allow to develop under the 10.5 for safety reasons and questions of the potential of losing life. In the context of the commercial, we would allow a garage, a parking garage under the 10.5, but and the occupied space over the 10.5. And this image represents that if the occupied floor space is between 9.25 and 10.5, we would have a disclaimer sign to make sure the critical height of the parking garage be over the 9.25. Something else we must look at here is there any portion that can be rezoned? We've identified a few that could easily be rezoned for reasons that they are very close to the Pecodiac River. The development possibilities don't exist, and so there won't be any development in the years to come. So we will rezone the lands to a conservative zoning to limit the kinds of development on these pieces of land. Here again, when we look at for and against, as Mr. Painter mentioned, the regulation, we talk about protecting the future development. The possibilities we can adopt for 100 years storm in 100 years. This gives the opportunity to adapt rather than prohibited development. We make a difference between residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional with the different height based on different return period. Supply some level of flexibility for future development and short-term pains for long-term gains. So we want to adapt the future framework to have a longer a longer planning period. A few against would be, fortunately, a regulation would not necessarily protect the existing structure. The municipality would have other means. It's a matter of looking at this more closely. And something else would be to have additional cost to adapt yourself and not to keep in mind structural measures of flooding, prevention of flooding. But here again, it's a matter of being looked at more closely. So, conclusion, we must look at this problem on a long-term basis. And what we recommend today, what we suggest is first generation of regulation by comparing the climatic change, and between 2015 2025 we'll keep on doing research concerning different tools, different studies to continue informing our regulations to keep on informing the way we want to protect the municipalities against climatic change until the next time that the municipal plan is revised in 2025, and even maybe we can incorporate between 2025. I hope so, says the mayor. Questions from the council and or the public on Mr. Girard's presentation. Mr. Béliveau. First of all, John.
0.5. Looking forward. Monsieur Béliveau.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship. My interest is on the pictures that are on page 111. We've talked about the regulations that are forthcoming city. I want to see where the pictures were taken because the date mentioned is May the 19th, 2015. Don't tell me it was Dieppe. Our page 111, there's 3 pictures, and unfortunately very well flooded mid 19, 2015. Our page. That's the date of today's presentation. These are not pictures from Dieppe. These pictures were taken in Dieppe, but it represents the storm we had in December. The date refers to today's presentation tonight. While we recognize all that is the flood, the December flood. More questions from the councillors or the public. Questions, comments. But Emile. It's clear. When we live in a marsh and the climatic conditions change the way they have changed, is there anyone in the room who does not believe in climatic change? Oh, okay. Come forward. Good evening, Denis Jalbert. I live in the app of Melanson. I have a private property that goes towards the Rotary Marsh. I have a brook that goes by. I made a comment to the lady to see who's responsible to clean that stream, that brook. When we have big storms, the current is quite strong, the erosion on the side, the trees fall and the branches collect the garbage. The smell leaves to be desired. On the weekend, I took the advantage of cleaning my section because my house is on an easement. And there's a pipe, an 8-foot pipe. So just the water that accumulates with the branches, it's garbage. The water is really The smell is bad. I remove the garbage as much as possible, but I wonder, along that brook, who's responsible to clean it? Is it the owners from the Rotary Park? I don't want to venture any further, but it's not very nice. Good question. Anyone has an answer, Mr. Melanson? Certainly, Your Worship. First of all, it's in a water flow. The municipality must have the permission to do some cleaning. If you remember the marsh on Gauvin, we needed a Wawa permit to remove some concrete, some cement, and other pieces that were along the stream. So along the Rotary Park, we need permission from the province to clean in a very specific period of time. We will send a message to the service to go and have a look. The public work, or also the recreational facilities, cooperation between the two, to go and see, inspect, and see if there's something to be done. Wawa, be Angel, it's a license to amend the water flow. Why Wawa? Maybe Wawa sounds better. I don't know. All right. Is it Wawa? If you could leave your name, phone number, so we can follow up with you if need be. Any other comments or questions? Member of Council, public? No? No one from the internet? I just want to pick up my glasses, sorry. Thought you had something else for us. Except the bill. If there is nothing else, then we thank you for your presentation, Mr. Painter, Mr. Gerard. Ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. For the members of council, there is a meeting on the other side, in camera. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.